I'm listening to a song now, just like on repeat. Not now, right now, but now when I'm going to the gym, when I'm walking around, when I'm getting ready. And there's a line in this song. I don't even know the exact lyrics. But he says, I remember the shows that nobody came to. And that opens me up every time I hear it, because I remember the webinars nobody came to. I remember the events nobody came to. I remember the events that I had planned out up in Canada that all got canceled. I remember people judging me for whatever it is that I was doing because they didn't think I knew what I was talking about. And back then I believed them more than I believed me. I remember the times that I didn't know if I was going to make it. I remember those times when I just had to go 1 second more like Scott on the mountain. I remember those times when nothing worked out the way I wanted it to work out. That's when that's when I put in the time that caused me to deserve the success that most of the other people do not deserve, because they didn't unconditionally commit. And so when you put out a Facebook post, when you put out a webinar, when you put out an event and almost nobody comes, 4 people come and you thought 30 were going to come, or whatever your expectations were or not met, that's the time you have to lean in more. That's the time that some point in the future, you're going to look back and go, that's where I got my value. I got my value because when things weren't working out, I kept climbing anyway. That's what this world needs. That's what this market needs, especially in the hyper distraction of all the marketing that I've alluded to. We need people that give a damn so much that they're unconditionally committed to doing this work for the sake of doing this work, singing their song for the sake of singing their song, not because somebody's going to listen to it and say, I like your song. Your value, you guys, your value that will translate into money, that will translate into impact, that will translate into clients, that value is created when the room is dark and nobody can hear you and you feel like crying or you are crying. That's when your value is actually created. And step number 1 in this process is become valuable. Become valuable, then become visible, and then become valued by clients, by customers. You become valuable by doing this work when people aren't listening, when people aren't commenting, when the only ones that are paying attention are the lurkers that are not letting you know they're paying attention. That's when you earn your value that's waiting for you in the future. But the more that the road has to look the way you hope the road looks, the more conditional your commitment is. And I had such a clear vision. I've been talking about this, even this analogy here and there off and on, but I had such a clear vision this morning when I woke up. And I almost, there's a part of me that wants to like drive to an airport and film a video. And I'll probably film this video next time I'm in an airport with somebody that can hold the camera for me. But, you know, in the airport, they've got those long, gigantic walkways, right? And if you want to go faster, you can get on the moving walkway and walk on the moving walkway and go faster. But the image that I had based on this discussion and getting ready for this call is we are getting on the walkway that's going the opposite direction. And you have to move a certain amount just to stay at the same place. You have to walk at a certain pace to stand still according to the world. In this marketing world, with all the people that are competing, with all the sharks, with all the money that's being spent, with all the people that are getting really, really good at pulling people's money out of their wallets and they're traumatizing people, with all of that going on around you, if you're walking at a slow pace, there's a point where you can just walk fast enough to stay still, but everybody else is on the other pathway that's actually moving. So staying still is falling behind. Standing still is falling behind. And you have to move at a certain pace just to stand still. So if you're walking at the break-even pace where you're standing still, you're falling behind. You've got to walk faster than that. And you've got to walk fast against the walkway that's going in the opposite direction. And pretty soon, when you start to build the body for this work that you're doing, what will happen is the walkway will slow down going against you. And at a certain point, the walkway will then stop moving against you. And then at a further point, the walkway will actually start moving with you. But most people aren't willing to go through all those levels of conflict, all those levels of discomfort, all those levels of evolution. They just expect the moving walkway to take them without doing much of anything because moving is uncomfortable. So here's what I promise you. I promise you the path will not be what you want. I promise you the path will not be what you hope it is. I promise you the path will not be what you envision it to be. I promise you the path will not be guarded by your intellect and play out the way it's supposed to play out for you. And I promise you that if you stay true to your calling and your purpose and your song, then what's down the path for you is something that is so unimaginable that you can't even currently contemplate what's waiting for you. It's literally impossible. You cannot see it. And what's out there is so much better than what you think should be out there at this comfortable path. It's staggering. But you have to earn it. In this phase of this curriculum, in this program, there's a lot of cutting your teeth. There's a lot of getting in motion and learning the lessons of being in motion and going through the process for the sake of the process, not for the outcome. And during this phase, it's critical that you have enough clarity to get in motion, not clarity to get it right. We talked about that at the live event. You need clarity to get in motion because here's why. When you are in unconditional commitment and you're taking unconditionally committed action toward your vision, then what happens is your higher power, your creator, God, the universe, whatever label you want to put on it is fine. Your purpose, this higher wisdom that you have that knows where you're meant to be, will start guiding you, but you have to be in motion first. Where you are right now on the planet is roughly 5.5 to 6 foot perspective above the ground. So if you're looking from your intellectual perspective and you're seeing what you want the landscape to be and you're seeing what it currently is and you're deciding what moves you have to make, you can't even see above a 6 foot wall, let alone a 10-foot wall or a 20-foot wall. And most of these walls are like 50 feet. So you can't see above the wall to see what's waiting for you on the other side. All you see is this side of the walls that are perceived to be around you. And you're operating with an intellectual perspective that is however tall you are minus a few inches. That's your perspective of the landscape. Well, we all have a wiser perspective. We all have God's perspective. We all have a much higher perspective from the universe that's looking down at us, and we can see the whole maze. We can see from above the walls, and we can see where this person, us, is meant to be over there, but unfortunately they can't see it because they got all these walls in front of them. From this perspective, as long as the person, us, is in motion, then this perspective, the universe, other people's energy, law of attraction, whatever you want to call this force, will guide you to the steps that you need to make, but you can't see these steps unless you're in motion. And I think that you don't deserve to get the answers unless you're in motion, unless you're willing to go head first into whatever the obstacles that you are that are perceived to be. Unless you're willing to go head first, you don't deserve the answers that are going to take you where you want to go. Most of us are just like this, demanding, why don't you tell me the answers that are going to take me where I want to go? God, universe, I'm going to sit here until you give me what I'm looking for. I'm going to sit here until you give me the answers, the signals, the solutions, the message, until you give me what my intellect says is the right thing, because I know much better than you do. I've got this path laid out. My intellect has spent all kinds of time on this. My intellect has designed a perfectly cemented path with no bumps. And unless you give that to me, and unless you prove to me that 4 steps down the path, 10 steps down the path, you won't mess this up for me. You won't disrupt this for me. You won't move the path at all. This path isn't going to have any cracks in it. I'm not going to have anybody trying to push me off this path. Unless you can give me a proven, guaranteed plan that helps me know that this path is the one that's for me, that this path is the one that I'll be able to walk without shoes because there's no glass, there's no bumps, there's no danger on that path. Unless you show me that, I'm going to stay right here. That's what most people are doing. When we get into unconditional commitment, what happens is our wisdom, our creator, and our purpose see where we need to go, see what we need to learn. See, we don't have the current embodied lessons for our purpose. That's much bigger than what we are creating right now. If we had the lessons, we would already have that purpose. So we need to be prepared from an embodied standpoint for the purpose that is waiting for us, for the purpose that has been assigned to our soul, not assigned to our intellect. Nothing is assigned to our intellect. Our intellect creates stuff on its own. But for us to be pulled toward the purpose that is assigned to us, we need lessons. We need to learn certain things about ourselves, about life, about success, about coaching, about whatever it is that we need to learn. We all have different lessons because we all have a different version of a similar purpose, which is to have an impact on this planet. But we need to be in motion for us to get those lessons. And in our community, we just call that dropping packages. When we're in motion, then the universe will drop packages to us. And then it's our job to unwrap the package and say, what do I need to learn from this person? What do I need to learn from this failure? What do I need to learn from this detour? But those packages will only be dropped if we are in uncommitted action, unconditional commitment, action toward our purpose that we can see right now. So the purpose of clarity is to get in motion. The purpose of motion is to get into action so that we can get the packages dropped, so that we can learn the lessons that we don't currently have in our awareness, in our mindset, in our state, in our neurology, to prepare us further for the assignment that we have on our soul. That's the purpose of clarity. The purpose of clarity is not to be right. The purpose of clarity is to get in motion. The purpose of motion is to get into action. The purpose of action is so that the packages will come down. And the purpose of the packages is that we unwrap it and we learn the lessons that will move us beyond our current obstacles. I want this analogy to stay with you. It's a new analogy for me. I want this analogy to stay with you because in this phase of getting valuable, your intellect will demand clarity of being right, and that does not exist. So that's what's on my heart before we get into the handout. I'll try to do the progression again, Jeff. I don't know. I was just making up in the moment. So the purpose of clarity is to get in motion, or the purpose of clarity is to take action. The purpose of the action is to get in motion so that the packages can be dropped with the lessons inside of them. The purpose of the package, which always comes in discomfort. The package is always uncomfortable. It comes through adversity. That's the only time that the most valuable lessons are delivered to us. That's the only way. It's the only channel that the most valuable lessons, that our soul's lessons are delivered to us. For the sake of achieving our purpose, we need soul lessons. The only time soul lessons are delivered to us are through adversity. That's the only way. We will never learn a soul lesson through success. We can enjoy success. We can learn some strategies of what worked. We will never learn a soul lesson that's strong enough to move us beyond our current obstacles unless we get the package that's only delivered through adversity. And adversity, so to open up that adversity channel to get the packages that you need to learn, discomfort is required. This is one of the things that I'm going to want you to remind yourself of, not all the time, only about 75 to 100 times an hour. And then once you move through that discomfort, then you'll be able to pull it back a little bit. You'll only have to remind yourself of this maybe 75 to 100 times a day. And then keep going. You learn these lessons, and you're only going to have to remind yourself of this, maybe 75 to 100 times a week. But it requires action. It requires constant willingness to confront the disruption, to open up the adverse channel, to collect the package, and the willingness to open the package. Because you know what's in every one of those packages? Every single one of them, you know what's in there? Every single one. I'd like you to tell me, what is in every single one of those packages? The bad guys. That's a great yes. To an extent, yes. Growth, absolutely. Well, as long as we dive in there and we do whatever it is that we want, that package is calling for us to do. Growth, more discomfort, opportunities to stretch more. All of those are correct to a certain degree. But before we get to all of those, every single package in it, you open that thing up and there's a mirror. Every single package has a mirror in it. Because every soul lesson that we need to learn is about us. It's about our embodied wisdom, our embodied leadership, our embodied confidence, embodied courage. All these traits, these intangible traits that people are looking for, we all have them inside. And the only way to get there is to go into ourselves. That requires a mirror every single time. So every single one of those packages are going to have a mirror in it. Here's how I want you to use this information. When you think of something and it creates discomfort for you, when you do something and it creates discomfort for you, I just want you to notice that is the step along this pathway that you're in, right? And I didn't think of any of this beforehand. And now what I'd love to do is actually create this progression, right? The progression of clarity, action, adversity, discomfort, package. Oh crap, there's a mirror in there. I don't want to look at it, but I have to look at it. And if inside the mirror is the lesson, then every time we don't open up the package, or we don't look in the mirror, or we don't do the challenge that this package has in it for us, then we are pushing away our lessons. And you can't push away the lessons while simultaneously experiencing what you need to experience to go on to the next level. You can't push away the lessons and beat the bad guys. You can't push away what you need, because, as Michelle just said, you're also pushing away your path. You're pushing away your seeker. You're pushing away the things that are being delivered to you from a higher source. I'm telling you, this is everything. This is the dolphin's way. This is the dolphin's way. The fears that our intellect creates are going to be theoretical fears, and they're usually going to be based on us not performing, which will lead to judgments, failure, disapproval, all those things that the intellect thinks it cares about and has convinced us are important. And it will use those fears very loudly. It knows where our buttons are, and it will do everything it can to keep us out of motion. The different kind of resistance is the one that requires looking into the mirror. That's a different game. It's a different game. It's so much easier to not look in the mirror. So much easier to not look in the mirror. But if you want to do this work, the mirror is required. There's something in this that I can feel. I don't know if it's a poem that I'm going to write, or a video or something, but what's in that mirror? That's where the deep stuff is. That's where the good stuff is. That's where the value is. And we don't want to look at it. We're afraid. We want to look away. But that's where our lessons are. So this is the inner game foundation. And as I talked about at the live event, as I talked about on the sales page, if you read the sales page, as I talked about in the webinars leading up to this program, the inner game is the most important piece of this by far, because every step of the way, from a structural standpoint, when you go to the first phase of your business, and then the second phase, and then the third phase, it's all going to come with inner game requirements. So understanding these components, understanding when you're when you're out of your discomfort, and understanding when you're off center, how do you get back in center and then keep moving into the discomfort? That's going to be everything. I promise you, everything. That's the work. And your intellect doesn't want it to be the work. Your intellect wants to know the strategies. Your intellect wants to just get to the clients. Your intellect is like, yeah, I get that. Hey, I looked at myself in the mirror on Tuesday, of last month of the previous year. So I do that. I'm good. I kind of briefly walked by and did a little drive-by look. So I'm good. Let's just get to the clients. You don't deserve the clients unless you've put in the work that the clients need you to put in. And so I introduced this phrase at the live event, and we're going to keep using it, is, do you have the body for it? you get the body for the success by doing all this work that we've been talking about. All right.